Welcome to WrestleTalk, the weekly video cast by Joshua Zimmerman, Pennsylvania wrestling promoter, owner of Continental Wrestling Entertainment, and avid wrestling fan and analyst since 1999. The purpose of these videos is to give you another outlook on the problems with wrestling and wrestling in general. We talk everything wrestling, and we want your feedback, and we hope to make this a big success. We will have special guests, but these next 1 to 3 videos that you'll see are the pilot, and just let me know what you think, and we'll carry it as long as we can carry it. I don't mind doing it, so let's get on it. The first topic for tonight is the problems with wrestling, and at first there really wasn't. Let's go into TNA real quick. TNA, run by Panda Energy Corporation and Dixie Carter. Panda Energy, owned by Dixie Carter's father. And this was an interesting perspective when they first came out of the gate, because TNA didn't have television syndication, but every month or every week you'd get your $10 pay-per-view, which is basically like their Impacts, but they sold them like pay-per-views, and that's what made them different. You had your X division, which they stuck out there. They wanted you to see the high flying, non stop wrestling action that also went hand in hand with storylines. Um, and more as it progressed, you've seen that she wanted to grow a little bit, which is fine. But I think where she overstepped a little bit and where she has no clue, I mean, she's a nice person, it seems, but she has no clue on how to cut the dead weight, because she never wants to fire anybody. And she also thinks that Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo are the godsend to her organization, which couldn't be further from the truth. These two are scum. These two are what's hurting her most, because it's all their direction, primarily, why this company's going the way it's going. But when they first came out of the gate, they stood behind their champions. Their champions meant something. Their storylines meant something. Everything was relevant. And now you basically got them to a point where they're pulling material from the bigger brand and simulating it on their show, which defeats the purpose. Um, WWF, on the other hand, since the buyout, I think Vince has taken the stance: I've made my money, I'm the biggest game in town, no one has the money to compete with me, which Chris Jericho has said as early as last month. You'll never beat our financials. They know it. They know that they have the money to squash anything. Whether they have a good product or not doesn't seem to matter anymore. And I think that should bother you, the wrestling fan, because it hurts the overall product when people start thinking there isn't anything that can be developed, anything that can be worked on to make the product better. The product is constantly, should constantly be scrutinized to see what you can cut away, where you can reduce your costs, where you can reduce just the bullshit that seems to come out of both of them anymore. Um, Eric Bischoff went to say last month, went on the record to say that the wrestling fan does not want to see wrestling in their wrestling program. They want to see the backstage gimmick, antics, and promos and all that happy stuff. I don't know about you, but as a wrestling fan, outside of being a promoter, but as a wrestling fan alone, I want to see wrestling in my wrestling program. On your average Raw, it shouldn't take you an hour to an hour and a half of promo and bullshit to get to the actual wrestling. What is the 2 hours for? You just wanted to talk. Call it WWE Presents the Talk Show. It would be easier. Stop calling it wrestling if they're just going to stand out there for almost 2 hours and cut promos. I mean, what made wrestling good 10 years ago, and why people keep attribute good wrestling back to the Attitude Era, is because for them, that's when they had the balance of storyline and wrestling. You followed the storylines, you followed the wrestler, and then at the end of the month, when the pay-per-view hit, you knew it was going to be one hell of a match, and either the feud and storyline would resolve, or it would develop into something bigger that could still be followed, and it would continue. Now, it just seems like, I mean, imagine this. Imagine that the WCW and ECW buyout happened, but it was never made public. Vince McMahon, at the end of the day, all the money would still go to him, but you basically keep on ECW talent. You cut away the dead weight from all three shows, including your your brand, and you keep it so it looks like WWE is still competing with two other companies. That way, you can pull interesting storylines, and you basically just it would benefit the wrestling fan if this happened this way because you'd have wrestling every other day on average the way it worked when everything came to a head, and you'd have different things for people to watch. It would still look like a competition, still look like everybody was competing with each other, but at the end of the day, Vince McMahon is the only one who needed to know that the WCW checks now had his name on it. I think it killed it when he bought out the competition. Well, duh, because when you buy out the competition, yes, it's an accomplishment, but if that's all you had to focus your product around, then you should have kept them around. They don't consider TNA competition, so they just sit back and spit out week after week of sometimes I'm lucky. I mean, lately you can mute it and still know what's going on. At this point, you can leave wrestling for 90 days and pick right back up on both brands. It couldn't be more of a soap opera than it is right now. And that's what's bad because 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was not like this. You had wrestlers you wanted to follow, ones you wanted to win, ones you didn't want to win, and it was a nice balance where the guy could come out, cut his promo, match would happen, the other guy would come out and comment, match would happen, rumors would go back and forth, and the build-up would start. Another problem, if you're WWE, even though WWE doesn't seem to think it's a problem, when you don't have wrestling writers writing the wrestling product, that's a problem. When you have television writers, all the television writers are worried about are the ratings at the end of the week. Now, this is a simple fix, simple math equation, that if you have good wrestling, you can still achieve the ratings. You don't have to entertain and talk people to death just to get your ratings. If you want to make a variety show, make a variety show. If you want to wrestle, get back on track. You can still obtain, and it would actually be a throwback to some of the veterans because you could put some of the vets from the earlier days on the writing team, and considering these are guys that used to work these matches, they would probably be able to come up with better ideas. Now, you got a bunch of people crammed up in a room, and I think their primary focus is ratings, but you can have both entertainment and ratings if you stick to your system from the past, where you make storylines that people want to follow. If the fans see that next week it's going to be the same thing, then of course it's going to get old. You're going to get tired of seeing it. And I think that's where I attribute that he got comfortable with his money and he just doesn't care anymore because he's the hottest ticket in town. He has no competition unless TNA fixes it up. And I encourage them to fix it up first by firing Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff immediately. Stop letting Dixie, stop letting these people run your promotion. Become a promotion. You can find people, your team, you can find your go-to guys anywhere. Like, research it better. These two only are out for themselves. They don't care about the wrestling fan. And in the end, it's going to make you look bad because it would say, basically, I don't care about the wrestling fan because I stand behind these two people. And that's all well and good if they were actually bringing something to the table, but they're not. And then you have, and then you have the NXT thing, which I kind of got a kick out of because we've done our tough enoughs, we've done our NXT, our Diva searches, we've done all of that. But the pretense of NXT was, get this, one person will emerge with a WWE contract. Seemed all well and good. But then you're going to exploit them in the ring. You take an independent superstar like Daniel Bryan, make him look like an idiot, throw him some money basically, end up shipping him back to his independent, where now he's got a little bit of Vince's money and more popularity than when he started, but it didn't really hurt him. You basically spit in his face, with Michael Cole referring to the independents as the minor leagues, and you wind up using him at SummerSlam where he should have been the whole time. But my whole point with NXT is, what was the point if all 7 guys were going to get contracts? It defeats the purpose. No wonder this does so horrible in ratings. No wonder nobody, like, it hurts me physically. I would rather pass a kidney stone than watch TNA or NXT because it it's already proven that it doesn't matter at the end of it. At the end of it, all 7 guys again could wind up with contracts. And my only fear is you have the Nexus right now from season 1 that are working out their kinks as we speak. They just started weeding out their people this past Raw. But what's going to happen when you have another 7 to 8 guys on top of an already bloated roster? Where are you going to put them? You can't push them all unless they're a group. So what's it going to be? 2, 3 super groups, considering you've already got you're in negotiations for season 3? I mean, second season of NXT 2 doesn't look like it's going to bring anything that NXT didn't bring. Nothing more exciting, nothing outside of that. But as we conclude on to part 2, we're going to talk about Chris Benoit, the Attitude Era a little better, the whole Daniel Bryan thing, which I would really like to get on. And we'll just see where we go from here. So stay tuned right away for part 2.